Welcome to The Rules of the Forest, where we take you deep into the heart of a national park. Here, a rather, let's say, unmotivated park ranger named Tony is trying to get through his day without too much work. He's had enough of people ignoring the rules. So today he's come up with a plan to make his life a little easier by making up rules. Very strange rules. Very strange rules indeed. All right, Tony, let's make this park a little less chaotic. If I just write up some random rules, maybe the tourists will leave me alone. No more running after them, no more explaining anything. Yeah, let's do it. There. Perfect. No more work for me today. And with that, Tony, in all his unmotivated glory, writes up a set of rules and discreetly places them on the windshield wiper of a tourist's car. He knows they'll read it. What he doesn't know is just how seriously these visitors will take it. Look at this view. Amazing. We should take some photos here. Totally. Hey, what's this on the windshield? Rules of the park. Let's see. Rule 1. Do not make eye contact with any bird species over 5 feet tall. Rule 2. The forest spirits will appear if you camp near the water. Avoid this at all costs. Rule 3. Don't enter the woods during a new moon without permission. These are weird rules. But hey, we're here to follow the rules, right? And so, the tourists set off to explore the park, carefully following each rule, as strange as they were. Little did they know, there was a very serious consequence for breaking one of these made-up laws. Come on, let's get a photo near the water. It'll look amazing in the sunlight, but the rule about the forest spirits, don't you think we should avoid it? Nah, it's just a myth. Who cares? With a click of the camera, the tourists unknowingly trigger the curse of the forest spirits. What? What is that? Did you hear that? It's too late. We've angered the spirits. And just like that, the first tourists became part of the park's bizarre history. They never returned, and their story would become a whispered legend told by those who dared to enter the forest after dark. The locals claimed they'd been dragged away by the forest spirits for their insolence. You heard the story, right? About those tourists who broke the rules near the water? They disappeared, never to be seen again. Yeah, I heard they made the mistake of getting too close. I'm telling you, that forest is alive, and it doesn't take kindly to rule breakers. And so the legend began. Tourists who ignored the rules, created by Tony, of course, were never heard from again. Tony, blissfully unaware of the havoc he'd unleashed, continued his lazy routine, now with a growing collection of rules that no one dared break. In the heart of the park, where the trees whisper secrets and the wind carries strange tales, Tony's little secret was about to unravel. No one knew that the rules they were following were the creation of one very lazy park ranger. But soon, the consequences would go beyond just some annoyed tourists. This place is beautiful. I've been dreaming of coming here for ages. It's amazing. Let's check out the forest. I've heard there are some wild stories about this place. A new group of tourists had arrived, completely unaware of the strange set of rules that had taken root in the park. They were eager to explore, blissfully ignorant of the invisible hand Tony had laid over them. But this time, something would go terribly wrong. Where's Sarah? I thought she was right behind us. She was here a minute ago. Maybe she went ahead to the lake. No, this isn't right. I can't find her anywhere. It's like she vanished. In the forest, a chilling silence settled as one of the tourists, Sarah, had inexplicably vanished. Her friend, frantic and confused, ran through the forest, desperately calling her name, but it was as if the trees themselves were hiding her. They had no idea what had happened, or that the rules, once broken, could cause much worse than just an eerie disappearance. Help! We need help! My friend is gone! We followed the rules, but something took her. It's... It's the forest spirits, isn't it? All right, all right. I'll go with you. Calm down. Tony, already frustrated by the situation, had no idea what he was walking into. This was supposed to be just another day of minimal effort and maximum relaxation. But now, with someone missing, the stakes were much higher. You don't understand. Sarah followed all the rules. She didn't break a single one. She didn't even go near the water. Yeah, I get it. But let's not jump to conclusions. The rules, they're not real. Trust me, I wrote them. Just to get people to behave, you know? Wait, you're saying you made those rules? Well, yeah. It's a long story. But anyway, no one's been taken by spirits. It's just... Did you hear that? It's them, isn't it? The forest spirits. Oh my God. We're going to die here, aren't we? As the whispers grew louder, something far more sinister seemed to loom in the air. The forest that had once been a place of tranquility was now filled with a dark and foreboding energy. Tony, realizing the trouble he'd created with his rules, felt the weight of his actions. The legend he'd started was spiraling out of control, and this time it might be too late to stop it. Okay? I'm not messing around anymore. I'm going to find Sarah. You stay here and don't move. What was that? Tony, what was that? As Tony and the tourist raced through the woods, the forest itself seemed to close in around them. The whispers, the growls, the unsettling rustling. It was as if the park had turned against them. Tony's plan, born of laziness and frustration, had unleashed a force far greater than he ever imagined. Would they find Sarah before it was too late? Or had Tony's own rules set into motion something much darker than he intended? In the shadows of the dense forest, Tony's rules have taken on a life of their own. What started as a harmless joke, meant to keep the tourists in check, has now spiraled into a nightmare of his own making. The whispers have grown louder, and something far darker is lurking. Will Tony survive his own twisted creation? This is getting out of hand. I told you there are no forest spirits. Just people get lost in these woods all the time. But those growls and the whispers. I saw something. Something moved in the shadows. We're not alone here, Tony. That wasn't me. That wasn't you. What the hell was that? Tony, who had spent most of his days lounging behind his desk, scribbling silly rules and avoiding work, now found himself tangled in a web of fear and uncertainty. The very forest he'd thought would be a source of easy money had turned into a place of nightmares. And the more he ran from his own consequences, the more those consequences seemed to catch up. Sarah? Is that you? Come on, we've got to... Suddenly a figure steps out from behind the trees. It's a man, disheveled and wild-eyed, dressed in clothing that looks far too old for the time period. Who? Who are you? What's happening here? You shouldn't be here. The forest, it always takes. What are you talking about? You're not from around here, are you? What's going on? I came here years ago, decades. Or maybe it was just yesterday. I lost track. The rules. They're not just for tourists, you know? They get into your head too. Don't follow them. If you break one, you'll never leave. Tony's heart skipped a beat. The stranger's words echoed in his mind. He'd written the rules, sure. But what had he unleashed? The man seemed to know more about this place than anyone else. Could it really be true? Was this forest alive with something far older and more dangerous than he could have imagined? Tony, it's happening again. The trees, they're moving. They're following us. Shh, we need to stay calm. The forest isn't alive, okay? It's all in your head. We just need to keep going and find Sarah. Tony tried to rationalize it, his usual approach to any problem. But even he couldn't deny the strange energy pulsing through the forest. The growls, the whispers, the sudden gusts of wind. They were all too real. And then, as if on cue, the ground beneath them shook, a low rumble rising from the depths of the earth. Tony stumbled forward, tripping over a root. He barely caught himself. His heart raced, and for the first time in his life he felt truly afraid. Okay, this is bad. This is really bad. Tony, please. What are we going to do? Run. Get out of here. Now. Tony had been too lazy to listen to the warnings. Too arrogant to understand the true power of the forest he'd thought he controlled. Now the forest was showing him no mercy. The rules he had created were now a trap, and Tony was caught in it. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It was just supposed to be a joke. But this is real. The rules were real. Tony's chest heaved with every breath. He had spent years avoiding responsibility, taking the easy way out, and now the consequences had come crashing down. His own arrogance had put them all in danger, and now he had no choice but to face the wrath of the very thing he had underestimated. As he stumbled through the forest, trying to make his way back, the shadows grew darker, the whispers louder. The forest was alive, and it had a very clear message. Don't mess with the rules. The air was thick with tension. Tony's mischievous rule-making had spun out of control, and now, it seemed, the very forest itself was closing in. I should have known better. This was never supposed to get this far. Where the hell is Sarah? I thought I heard her. Did she disappear just like the others? The rule Tony had written, the one that led to all this madness, was never meant to be followed. It was a joke, a twisted joke. But now, as the sun set and the darkness grew thicker, Tony was starting to realize the true power of his creation. I thought it was all just harmless fun. But there's something here, something far worse than I ever imagined. Suddenly, there was a movement in the shadows. Tony spun around, his heart pounding. A figure emerged from the darkness. Sarah? Is that you? You shouldn't have written those rules. Now they're listening. Tony froze. The rules were never just for the tourists. They were a trap. And now, with Sarah's unexpected return, he realized the truth. The forest had been waiting for him to break it, waiting for someone to challenge its power. What do you mean? Who's listening? What happened to you? You weren't supposed to know. I tried to warn you. But now, you're part of the story. The sound of screaming faded into the distance, replaced by whispers that seemed to come from every direction. The air grew colder, as if the very trees were watching Tony's every move. The forest isn't just a place, it's a keeper of memories, and when you break the rules, it remembers. Suddenly, the ground beneath Tony gave way, and he fell, his body colliding with something hard, something cold. What the hell? He tried to rise, but the ground held him in place, as if the earth itself was pulling him down. His eyes darted around in panic. Tony, you've already lost. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just thought I was having fun. You still don't understand. This was never about you. It's about them. And in that moment, Tony realized that the forest, the rules he wrote, the mystery surrounding the disappearances, it was all a trap, designed not for the tourists, but for him. Tony's fate became just another story whispered in the wind, another legend that would live on in the forest, where the rules were never meant to be broken. And as for Sarah, she disappeared again. Or maybe she was never really there. After all, the forest remembers everything, even the ones who come and go. The next morning, the sun rose over Redwood Valley, casting its golden glow on the campsite. The chaos of last night had left Tony bruised but wiser, or so he thought. As he packed his truck, something caught his eye. What the... Another flyer? But this one wasn't his handwriting. Rule number 1. Never leave the campfire unattended. Rule number 2. Never walk alone after dark. Rule number 7. Never assume the rules are fake. It seemed Tony wasn't the only one making the rules anymore.